Catherine, can we start with you, because you are frontline and I'm sure have a far better understanding of how wonderful our teachers are in terms of homeschooling. Five kids that you've got to try and keep occupied and do your homeschooling. How has it gone?
Mostly rubbish. It's been okay, but it's been pretty stressful. And I've got a 7-year-old and the eldest is 15, so that's been quite hard to manage. The younger one, the homeschooling, has been the easiest, mostly because I understand everything that he's doing. So all the online stuff, I can do it with him. My older two, I have absolutely no idea about their homework most of the time. My son could show me a page of maths. It may as well be Japanese for all I know. So it's not even like I can check that they're doing what they should be doing, because I don't get most of it. And so that has been quite stressful. And the routines we had in the beginning, all the great intentions of how life at home whilst trying to teach them was going to go, went out the window on about day 3. It was that or murder. So yeah, it's been an interesting one, not one I'm particularly keen to repeat. I'm not a teacher and I would never choose homeschooling as a lifestyle for me or my family. I'm not patient enough, and I don't enjoy it. So kind of being put in this position, it has been understandable, but absolutely chaotic.
I can imagine. And tempers fray, don't they? And it just gets very stressful, and then all the guilt kicks in about, you know, not doing enough for them. But I think, let's talk to Paul Mundy-Castle. I mean, in a way, what you're hearing from Catherine is at least the attempt to try and do it, and online learning being provided. But there are real concerns that there are millions of children who live in poverty, who were already in poverty before this, who were relying on hot school meals during the day as their only hot meal, and for whom at home, no matter what the best intentions of parents, they don't have laptops, they don't have printers. And what is your real concern here about school closures carrying on for any longer?
Could I just come in and, if you don't mind, correct something that Ben said earlier about schools being closed for the last 5 weeks? Because I'm a school leader and my school has been open and we've never closed. The government
for key workers, children, yeah.
Yes, so school has been open and we've had staff in actually working with young people. As an educator, we understand the value of education. We understand that actually in terms of that poverty gap, having a good education is one way we can actually guarantee brighter futures. So we feel the pain of young people not being able to access schools and come into their comfortable, normal context. But we also have to be sure that we understand the science around what's going on, and we don't want to rush back to school and actually cause longer term issues. So it's really about making sure the science is right. And if we are going to socially distance when we come back into schools, schools have to be prepared and ready to be able to adapt. And in terms of the way schools are constructed, it is really, really difficult to actually socially distance properly. I mean, I work in a fantastic school. The governors have been absolutely amazing. We've done things like put hand sanitizers across the school. We've updated our toilets, but we can't physically do anything about the corridors and the classrooms.
Yeah. Damien, if we can come to you. Paul is absolutely right. I was wrong. Of course, schools are staying open for those key workers' children and doing an incredible job, and vulnerable children as well that do still need food. I know you're concerned about when schools should be opened and it not happening prematurely. I just want to show a graphic that Imperial College has done. It estimates that the full lockdown has worked to reduce the reproduction number, that's the average number of people that is infected by COVID-19, to get below 1. 0.6 is where we are at the moment, slowed the rate. Now, the Tony Blair Institute for Global Change has taken this data, assessed how loosening the measures might affect the reproduction. The only measure that we could loosen and keep it below that number is returning schools. It stays down below that number of 1, which is absolutely vital. All the other measures, public events, social distancing, self-isolation, bust that line completely. But parents will be taking great comfort from that this morning, because the idea that potentially we could reintroduce schools in a phased way, however that looks, and it won't massively affect that number, which is hugely important, isn't it?
That number is hugely important. Look, I haven't seen the methodology used by Imperial or by the Tony Blair Institute. I would say I think it's quite ambitious to say that we can have that fine degree of accuracy on these predictions. These are modelled numbers at the end of the day. And of course, schools being back also means more parents being at the school gate and all sorts of other knock-on effects. So I think we have to be careful about saying we can be sort of that precise. But I mean, everybody, I think, all parents around the country will be able to relate to what Catherine was saying about the difficulties of doing this at home, and particularly in Catherine's case with 5 children, all at different stages in secondary, where it's harder to follow and understand the curriculum. Totally get that. But also, the head teacher is absolutely right. We have to get this balance where it has to be when the science says that we can have a good degree of confidence. And of course, it's partly about the R rate now, but it's also about making sure that we minimise the risk of a second wave coming further on.
And I think that we have to take into consideration teachers' fears as well, and and BAME, teachers from non-white backgrounds. We're hearing a lot about people from ethnic minorities being, targeted by this disease and having a higher death rate. Can we just bring in Dr. Hillary? And I know that Paul Mundy-Castle in particular will be interested to hear from you. It's interesting hearing from a head teacher saying, listen, we have to wait for the science to say that it's safe, how, that we can bring children back into school. But the science, people disagree all the time, and the science is developing. I mean, it could take months, couldn't it, before there is a consensus on whether children under the age of 10, for example, carry it and whether they can spread it.
Yeah, and the way to get around that is to carry out some pilot schemes in certain areas so that we can see what happens. It'll take a bit of time, but it'll be safer. If we look at history, we look at swine flu in 2009, there was a big drop in cases of swine flu when schools closed for the summer, and then there was a second peak of swine flu when they went back at the end of the summer holiday. So we need to make sure that just because children are resilient to the virus, they can still transmit the virus. And I'm very concerned about what the Swiss said about it's fine to hug your grandchildren. I mean, that is so dangerous. That could just be a hub of new infection. So I think we need to be really careful. We need to phase schools back in gradually. I know the benefits of going back to school for many, many people in certain circumstances, but we have to put health first. And I think if we have pilot schemes and we look at what happens when we phase in going back and socially distance as much as possible children, then we can really tell how safe it is and how we can do it.
Paul, who's still with us, of course, the head teacher, can you give Catherine, who's just above you in the screen, and I know you can't really see her, but she's listening, as other parents are this morning, can you give some guidance or comfort, really, to parents who feel that they want to try and get through the worksheets as is put out on a timetable, or trying to find a plant from the garden to do this or that, or whatever it is that you're being asked to do on a daily basis, quite rightly by the teachers who are trying to educate the children from a far distance. But the balance between stressing out the children and having a sort of quite anxious household versus getting the worksheets done. I mean, what is your advice, really, this morning?
Well, no one learns if they are suffering from stress or anxious. So that's the first thing. I think to Catherine and all the other mums and dads out there who are having to learn how to homeschool, schools are incredibly adept at actually closing the gap and ensuring when young people do come back to school, we will fill the gap. I think try your best, stay positive, try to learn about your child in terms of the way they learn. Some people pick up things incredibly quickly. Some will take a little bit longer. And I think it's about understanding how your own child actually learns